Some revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, like a single drop of poison in a bottle of roses. I never imagined I'd be the kind of woman who'd lace another woman's perfume with poison. Not the kind that kills, but the kind that reveals. The kind that strips away a mask she wore too comfortably. The morning I did it, my hands were shaking so much that the glass bottle slipped from my fingers and clinked against the sink. I held my breath, terrified that it might shatter, but it didn't. It stood there, delicate and elegant, like her, like the woman who took everything from me and still had the audacity to smile at me at family gatherings. Samantha, my ex-husband's new wife. The scent that floated out of that bottle was light, floral, almost innocent, a scent too sweet for someone with hands so dirty. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the kitchen window, a gentle rhythm that made everything feel strangely still. I twisted the bottle open with a careful hand, poured the harmless but irritating solution inside, and whispered a quiet prayer. Not for forgiveness, not yet, for courage, because this wasn't just revenge, this was exposure. Before Samantha came into our lives, things were simpler, not perfect, never perfect, but warm. I lived in a modest house, tucked behind a row of maple trees, the kind of house where Sundays smelled like cinnamon rolls and the afternoon sunlight found its way through white curtains, painting the walls gold. My ex-husband, Michael, used to sit at the dining table reading the newspaper, pretending not to look at me while I cooked. We had routines, morning walks, Friday night pizza, whispered arguments in the dark. We loved each other in the way tired people love, steady, familiar, with a shared history instead of grand gestures. But routine can be a quiet killer. Our marriage didn't end with a scream. It ended with silence, long silences, stretched to thin over years. And then, one day, he packed his clothes, avoiding my eyes, and left with a single sentence. I can't do this anymore, Julia. I didn't ask him to stay, and maybe that was the beginning of everything. Months later, I heard whispers of a woman, someone new, someone young and bright, as his sister described her. Her name was Samantha, the woman who wore white dresses and red lipstick like she was born for the camera. People said she made him smile again. I pretended it didn't sting, but the day I saw their wedding photos on Facebook, her hand looped through his. Her smile wide and practiced, something inside me cracked. Not jealousy, not even heartbreak, just a hollow, aching kind of awareness. I was replaceable. I tried to move on. I really did. I built a quiet life, teaching English literature at the local high school. I spent weekends baking with my niece, Chloe. I planted roses in the garden, the kind that blooms slowly, stubbornly. Life had shape again. Even if it wasn't the shape I had planned. But Samantha had a way of invading spaces she wasn't invited to. It started with messages, casual, almost polite. Hey Julia, do you still have Michael's old birth certificate? We need it for some paperwork. Then, would you mind if I drop by to pick up some of his books? Every time I saw her name on my phone, I felt the ground shift beneath me, not from pain, but from something colder. Resentment. She was always so charming, always performing, and Michael, poor fool, was always enchanted. The first time she visited the house, she smelled like citrus and gardenia. She hugged me like we were old friends. I stood stiff in her arms, my fingers curling at my sides. Oh Julia, she said, brushing her perfect blonde curls back. I've heard so much about you. You have such a lovely home. I offered her coffee. She complimented everything. She laughed too loudly. And when she left, I found my wedding photo frame turned upside down on the living room shelf. Maybe it was accidental. Maybe not. For months, I avoided their world. Until the accidents began. Samantha had a way of making her tragedies public. First, it was an allergic reaction to shellfish at a family dinner. She fainted dramatically and had to be rushed to the hospital. I remember the way she clutched Michael's hand like a fragile heroine in a movie. Then, a week later, it was a sprained ankle at a charity event. She posted a tearful photo on Instagram. God is testing me, she wrote. People flooded her comments with love, then a mysterious rash, then food poisoning, then another fall. I should have dismissed it. People have bad luck, right? But something about the way she always had an audience, always had someone ready to save her. Something didn't sit right with me. I noticed patterns, the timing, the witnesses, the stories that didn't quite align. And one night, when Chloe came home from their house after a family gathering, she said something I'll never forget. She fell again today, Chloe said, eyes wide. But Aunt Julia, she looked at me before she cried, like she was making sure I was watching. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I started observing her quietly, from the edges. She craved sympathy like oxygen. She crafted every incident like a performance. And Michael, he was blind. Maybe willingly so. The final straw came at a charity gala. She wore a silk dress that clung to her like it had been sewn just for her. She laughed, twirled, charmed every room, and then, right in the middle of the speech, she gasped, clutched her chest dramatically, and collapsed against Michael's arms. Cameras flashed, people screamed, an ambulance was called. But I was standing close enough to see it. Her eyes flickered open, just for a second, and she smiled, a smile, not of pain, of triumph. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, the old wall clock ticking too loudly. A part of me wanted to scream at Michael, shake him, tell him to see, but another part of me knew that words wouldn't work. She was too careful, too good at playing the victim, so I decided to give her exactly what she wanted, a performance, but this time, she wouldn't control the script. I opened my old drawer and pulled out a small vial, an irritant, nothing dangerous, a leftover from a science demo at school, meant to trigger mild allergic reactions on contact, redness, itching, nothing fatal, nothing illegal. I picked up my phone and sent her a message. Samantha, you left your favorite perfume here the other day. Want me to drop it off? She replied in less than a minute. Oh Julia, you're an angel. I'll swing by tomorrow. My hands tightened around the phone. Angel, if only she knew. I didn't plan to hurt her. I just planned to let her mask fall, in front of everyone who believed in her little tragedies. The next morning, I stood in my kitchen, staring at that floral bottle. My reflection stared back at me in the window, tired eyes, steady breath. This isn't about him, I whispered to myself. This is about the truth. The bottle clicked shut. The plan was set. I didn't sleep that night. The bottle sat on the kitchen counter like a quiet secret, gleaming under the pale glow of the stove light. I made a cup of chamomile tea, but it grew cold on the table. My mind was already 5 steps ahead, imagining Samantha's carefully painted face, twisting into panic when the redness crept across her neck, when her practiced poor me act would crack for everyone to see. It wasn't about revenge. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. It was about truth. The next morning was bright, too bright. The kind of morning that makes everything feel sharper. I slipped the perfume bottle into a small gift bag, tied it with a white ribbon, and placed it by the front door. If I was going to do this, it would have to look effortless. Natural. She showed up right on time. She always did. Samantha's Cara, gleaming silver SUV, rolled up to my curb like it belonged there. She stepped out, wearing a cream-colored sweater, pearl earrings, and her hair in those soft waves that always made her look like she'd stepped straight out of a lifestyle ad. Julia, she sang out, waving as if we were brunch buddies. I forced a smile. Hey Sam, come on in. She breezed past me into the house, her perfume a different one this time, lingering behind her like expensive smoke. Oh my God, you're such a lifesaver. I was freaking out because I thought I lost this perfume. Michael gave it to me for our anniversary. You know, the first one, she added, with that syrupy emphasis that was meant to sting. I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Glad I found it. Then, she lifted the bottle from the bag and spritzed it on her wrist, right there in my kitchen, as if she owned the air around us. I love this scent. It's so me. The irony almost made me laugh. As she turned to leave, she flashed that perfect smile again. You're really sweet, Julia. Not many ex-wives would do what you're doing. I mean, most would hate me. I tilted my head, keeping my voice soft. Hate takes too much energy, Sam. Her smile faltered just for a second. Then she laughed it off and strutted out. When the door closed, I exhaled. It felt like I'd been holding my breath for hours. That weekend, there was a family brunch at Michael's mother's house, the kind of gathering I usually avoided. But this time, I had a reason to be there. Michael's mom, Evelyn, had never stopped treating me like family. She still sent me Christmas cards, still called on my birthday. She didn't approve of how fast Michael moved on, though she'd never say it out loud. When she asked me to come that Sunday, I said yes. Her house smelled like cinnamon and pancakes, just like it always did. The dining room buzzed with chatter. Nieces, nephews, Evelyn, fussing over everyone. And then there she was, Samantha. She walked in like she was stepping onto a stage. White sundress, gold earrings, hair loose and shining. I could tell the perfume had already been generously applied. I caught the scent before she even reached the table. Hi everyone, she chirped. She always had to be the brightest thing in the room. Michael followed behind her, hand resting on the small of her back. His eyes sparkled the way they used to with me, back when he was still mine. Julia, Evelyn said warmly, pulling me into a hug. I'm so glad you came, sweetheart. Samantha's smile tightened slightly at that. She was good, but not flawless. And today, I needed those cracks. It started small. Halfway through brunch, as Evelyn was passing around her famous blueberry muffins, Samantha's hand went to her neck. Just a light scratch at first. She kept chatting, kept laughing, but then she scratched again, and again. Are you okay, honey? Michael asked, glancing over at her. Yeah, she said quickly, brushing it off with that breathy little laugh she did when she wanted attention without asking for it directly. But within minutes, faint blotches started to appear along her collarbone, light pink, growing brighter. She tried to cover them with her hand. I watched from across the table, stirring my coffee slowly. Sam, your skin, Michael's sister, Hannah, leaned forward. You're breaking out. Are you having another allergic reaction? The room shifted, voices lowered. Samantha touched her neck, eyes wide, not with real panic, but calculation. I knew that look. She was deciding how big a performance to make. I don't know, she stammered. I'm feeling a little warm. Michael stood up immediately, worry etched across his face. Do you need me to call 911 again? No, she said too quickly. I'll be fine. I think it's that perfume I used. Maybe it's expired or something? Her act wavered. This wasn't part of her usual tragic script. Perfume? Evelyn asked. Honey, you wear that every day. Yeah, Hannah added, tilting her head. You've worn it too, like every party this year. The table buzzed with low chatter. Eyes started to shift, not with sympathy this time, but curiosity, doubt, and then the best part, she tried to keep talking, tried to keep control of the narrative, but the itch got worse. Her neck flushed, her skin reacting exactly as planned. She excused herself to the bathroom, nearly knocking over a chair in the process. Michael followed her like a shadow. Of course he did. I stayed seated, sipping my coffee as the room hummed with unease. Evelyn leaned closer to me. That girl has more accidents than anyone I've ever met, she muttered under her breath. I bit back a smile. Maybe she's just unlucky. But Evelyn gave me a look that said she wasn't buying it. Not anymore. 15 minutes later, Samantha reemerged. Her face was pale, her skin blotchy, but what stood out most wasn't the rash. It was her eyes. Wide, nervous. For the first time, she didn't look like the center of a tragedy. She looked like someone cornered. Are you sure you're okay? Hannah asked. Samantha forced a nod. Yeah, I just need some air. Michael wrapped his arm around her. I'll take her home. The gathering broke up soon after that, but I lingered in the kitchen, helping Evelyn clean up, letting the quiet stretch out. Evelyn glanced at me, lowering her voice. You know, she said softly, I've seen a lot of women in this family come and go, but Samantha, there's something about her that doesn't sit right with me. She's too rehearsed. I didn't answer, but I felt something heavy loosen in my chest. I wasn't the only one who saw it anymore. As I drove home, the late afternoon sun streaming through my windshield, I felt an unfamiliar rush in my veins. Not joy, not exactly triumph, but something like control. This wasn't over. Not yet. Because Samantha's story depended on one thing: people believing her. And all I had to do was make them see what I already knew. I didn't plan to become obsessed. But after that brunch, something in me switched. I'd spent months being the quiet ex-wife, the woman everyone tiptoed around. The one who smiled politely at Samantha's perfectly curated tragedies. Now, I was watching closely. I started noticing little things I'd ignored before. The way she always fell ill in public, but never at home. How every hospital visit ended with perfectly timed photos on her Instagram. How Michael paid for her treatments without question. And how there were always just enough people present to witness her pain. She wasn't just performing, she was profiting. A week after the brunch, Michael called me out of the blue. His voice was tired, frayed at the edges. Julia, he said, have you heard anything about Sam? I hesitated. Why would I? She's been having more reactions. The doctors can't figure out what's causing it. She's covered in hives. She can't sleep. She's terrified. His voice broke a little, and for a moment, against my will, I felt a flicker of guilt. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, keeping my voice neutral. She keeps saying she's cursed or something. I swear, I've never seen her like this. It's bad. I bit my lip. Michael, maybe you should take a step back. You've been carrying her through a lot. You've done more than enough. He sighed, a sound that dragged through the line. I know, but I love her. That word, love, hit me in the chest like a soft punch. Not because I still wanted him, but because once, that word was ours. When we hung up, I stared at the ceiling for a long time. I'd triggered something bigger than I intended. She was unraveling. And in a strange, almost cruel way. That's exactly what I needed. 2 days later, I parked across the street from their house. Not out of impulse. Out of precision. Samantha's SUV wasn't in the driveway. Michael's wasn't either. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of sprinklers watering the lawn. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. Then a black sedan pulled up. Not Samantha's. A man stepped out. Not Michael. A man in a pressed shirt, carrying a sleek leather bag and looking around, like someone who didn't belong in the neighborhood. He walked up to their front door. She let him in. I knew that house well enough to know they'd head straight to the living room. My palms were slick as I got out of my car and crossed the street. I told myself it was just curiosity, but that was a lie. It was hunger for the truth. Their kitchen window was slightly open. She always liked fresh air. I crouched low against the sidewall, close enough to hear their voices through the open pane. I'm telling you, I need it to look real. Samantha's voice snapped. Not soft or sweet now. Sharp, cold. The man's voice was steady. We've already done 2 claims this year. The insurance company's starting to ask questions. I don't care, she hissed. They'll believe it. They always do. You'll file the paperwork. I'll play the victim. Michael pays the bills, and the checks come in. Just make it happen. A chill shot straight through me. Insurance claims, staged illnesses, all those hospital visits. They weren't just about attention. They were part of a scheme. You're pushing it, the man muttered. Faking reactions is one thing, but this I'm not faking, she snapped, her voice rising. Well, not exactly. I did have that reaction last time. God knows from what, but it worked. They pitied me even more. He wired the money right away. So yeah, I'm doing it again. My breath caught. She didn't even know about the irritant in the perfume. She'd played the part so well, even she believed her own lies. The man sighed. Samantha, eventually someone's gonna catch on. Her voice lowered then, dripping with venom. Then I'll cry. I'll shake. I'll say I'm sick. And Michael will believe me. He always does. Something in me snapped, not with anger, but with a heavy, sick clarity. She'd wrapped my ex-husband in a performance so perfect. He'd forgotten how to see. And worse, she was hurting people. Stealing, lying. This wasn't a scorned ex-wife's drama anymore. This was criminal. The man left 20 minutes later. I stayed frozen behind the wall, my pulse hammering. My hands were trembling. When the door finally closed behind him, I crept back to my car. My heart slamming so hard I could hear it in my ears. I should have gone home. I should have let it end there. But as I sat in that driver's seat, gripping the wheel, I realized something. I had proofed on my old security camera, the one still mounted on the garage across the street. I'd never bothered to take it down after I moved. It was still angled perfectly toward their front door. It had recorded the whole thing. I pulled out my phone and logged into the feed. There it was. The man, the bag, her face in the doorway. I had my first weapon. I spent the next 48 hours collecting more. Every photo she posted, every fundraiser she'd shared online for her medical bills, every accident she'd turned into a performance. I cross-checked the dates with the insurance filings I could find through public records. And there it was. Pattern after pattern, payout after payout, a trail of fake tragedies. I don't know what was colder, discovering the scam, or realizing how easy it was to unravel. She wasn't some mastermind. She was just shameless. And Michael, he had no idea. The next Friday, I asked him to meet me. Neutral ground, a small coffee shop by the lake. It was a place we used to go when we were younger, when love was easy and the world was still a promise. He looked tired when he walked in. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. This was not the man I used to know, the one who laughed with his whole chest. This was someone carrying a weight he didn't understand. Julia, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. What's going on? I took a breath, steadying myself. Michael, what I'm about to tell you isn't easy, and I need you to actually listen, not defend her. His jaw tightened. Julia, please. My voice cracked just slightly, enough to make him pause. For once, he nodded stiffly. I reached into my bag and pulled out the small folder I'd spent all night putting together. Photos, screenshots, insurance filings, her Instagram posts, and finally the footage. I slid it toward him. She's not sick, Michael. She's not unlucky. She's lying. He frowned, flipping through the papers. Then the video played on my phone. Samantha, the man, her words, His face went pale. "What is this?" he whispered. "It's real," I said softly. "She's been staging her illnesses, faking reactions, taking your money, taking insurance money. She's not a victim. She's running a scam." His hands clenched into fists around the edge of the table. "No, no. She wouldn't," he shook his head. "She wouldn't do that." "She did," I said gently. "You just didn't want to see it." Silence settled between us. Heavy, unforgiving. He stared at the table for a long time, jaw tight, eyes glassy. Then he whispered, "Oh my God." I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt tired, like the truth had always been sitting there, waiting for him to finally pick it up. "She's using you, Michael," I said quietly, "and everyone else." His voice cracked. "I married her." I leaned back. "Yes, you did." He didn't look at me when he left the coffee shop, but his hands were shaking. That night, I lay awake listening to the rain against my bedroom window. The bottle of perfume still sat on my dresser, a silent reminder of the spark that started it all. I hadn't planned on destroying her world, but now, the truth had a momentum of its own, and soon, it wouldn't just be between me and Michael. The world was about to see who Samantha really was. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was buzzing. 3 missed calls from Michael, 1 text that simply said, "Julia, she knows." My heart thudded against my ribs. I stared at those 2 words for a long time, reading them over and over. She knows. Of course she did. Michael was never good at hiding things. And Samantha, she could smell suspicion like blood in the water. It was just afternoon when I opened my front door and saw her standing on my porch. No makeup, wet hair clinging to her face, an oversized hoodie pulled tight around her frame. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was the picture of fragility, a wounded dove, but her eyes, they were hard, calculated. "Julia," she said softly, too softly, "we need to talk." I didn't answer. I just stepped aside, letting her in. I wasn't afraid of her, but I knew this wouldn't be pretty. She walked into my living room like she owned it, turning slowly, taking it all in as if she were gathering her performance cues. Then she turned to me, and the mask fell away. "How dare you?" she hissed. I crossed my arms. "How dare I, what? Catch you in a lie?" Her jaw tightened. "You had no right to spy on me?" I laughed, bitter. "I didn't have to spy. You left the window open and walked into the trap all by yourself." "Michael told you." Her eyes flashed. "He told you everything." "No," I said calmly. "You told me everything. I just listened." She took a step closer, her voice dropping lower. "You don't understand what you've done. You're trying to ruin my life?" I met her gaze, steady. "I didn't ruin your life, Samantha. You did that all by yourself." Her hands trembled not from fear, but from fury. She wasn't crying. Not yet, but I could see the calculation behind those eyes. She was trying to figure out how to twist this back on me. Then she straightened, inhaling slowly, and just like that, the mask slipped back on. "I'm sick. Julia," she said, voice suddenly weak, cracking in rehearsed places. "I've been fighting this for years. You're just jealous. You always were." I almost laughed. Almost, but something about her calmness sent a ripple of unease through me. She wasn't just defending herself. She was planning. "You're done," I said quietly. "This isn't just about me or Michael. The evidence is solid. You've taken thousands in payouts. You lied to insurance companies. That's not a little performance anymore. That's fraud." Her smile froze, just slightly, but I caught it. She took a slow step toward me. "Then you should be careful, Julia, because if I go down, I'm not going alone." The air between us thickened. She wasn't bluffing. She'd spent years manipulating people, and she was dangerous when cornered. Then she turned on her heel, opened the door, and walked out like she'd just delivered a death sentence. By evening, the storm had started. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. A neighbor, a mutual friend, even a teacher from my daughter's old school. All sharing the same thing. Samantha's post a long, tear-soaked video where she sat on her living room floor in an oversized hoodie, shaking, gasping for breath. The title read, "She's trying to destroy me." In the video, she told everyone I had been harassing her, that I'd fabricated lies, that I'd broken into her privacy. She even threw in that I was jealous of her marriage and unstable from my divorce. And then, the kicker? I've never felt so unsafe. "She's dangerous. If anything happens to me, you'll know who did it." The comments section was on fire. People sending hearts, prayers, support, some calling me names I won't even repeat. She'd spun the story in less than 6 hours and she'd made herself the victim, exactly like she always did. Michael called that night. His voice was raw, strained. Julia, it's bad. She posted everything. People are calling me not. She's crying, saying you threatened her. I clenched the phone. Do you believe her? Silence. Michael, I said sharply. Look at the evidence. You know she's lying. I know, he whispered. I saw the footage. I saw everything. But she's telling everyone you doctored it. She's saying you set her up. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course she is. She can't admit the truth. That would mean giving up her stage. I'm trying to calm things down, he said weakly. She's falling apart. I swallowed the frustration burning at the back of my throat. No, Michael, she's acting. Another silence. He was torn. I could hear it in the crack of his breathing. She's already talked to a lawyer, he finally whispered. My blood ran cold. The next day, I walked into the insurance office with my evidence neatly packed into a file. Dates, claims, screenshots, the recorded conversation. I'd spent years letting Samantha rewrite every narrative she touched. This time, she wouldn't. The agent's face shifted from polite curiosity to sharp attention as I explained everything. Every fabricated emergency, every payout, every manipulated hospital trip. This is serious, he muttered, flipping through the file. If what you're saying is true, this could be considered felony fraud. It is true, I said steadily, and I can back up every word. He nodded slowly. We'll have our investigators contact you, and her. I walked out of that office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Control, but Samantha didn't sit quietly. Within 48 hours, my name was being whispered in neighborhood group chats. My daughter's friends' parents were texting her asking if everything was okay. Someone had sent anonymous emails to my workplace accusing me of harassment and psychological instability. She wasn't just defending herself. She was trying to destroy me first. On the third night, I was sitting on the couch with a cup of tea when the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Michael was standing there. His hair was a mess. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Can I come in? He asked quietly. I hesitated, then nodded. He sat down on the edge of the couch, hands shaking slightly. She's not who I thought she was, he whispered. His voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to believe her so badly, but after you left that folder, I started digging. I found the bills, the withdrawals, the donations. Tears welled up in his eyes. She's been lying to me for years. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. It wasn't victory. It wasn't revenge. It was grief. He had loved her the way I once loved him, and now he was finally seeing the truth, raw, ugly, and undeniable. I'm sorry, I said softly. He shook his head. Don't be. I should have seen it. Then he handed me a printed document, a copy of the police report he'd filed earlier that day. She thinks she can control the narrative, he said quietly, but I'm done protecting her. Samantha's world started cracking the way glass does, not all at once, but in thin, sharp fractures. The insurance company launched an investigation. One of her old donors came forward with screenshots. A nurse from the ER she loved to visit started talking. And for the first time in years, Samantha couldn't control the story. The tears on her Instagram didn't work like they used to. The pity started to sour into suspicion, and slowly, people began to see. A week later, I stood on my porch as Michael drove away from the house he'd shared with her. The for sale sign stood in the yard like a silent exhale. He looked at me one last time. Thank you, he said, for showing me. I nodded. Take care of yourself. He gave a small, tired smile. And then he left. I watched his car disappear down the street, and for the first time in a long time, the air around me felt quiet, but I knew this wasn't the end. Samantha wasn't the kind of woman to go down without a fight. And somewhere out there, behind her tear-streaked face and carefully staged innocence, she was already plotting her next move. I could feel it.